Wonderful. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our series of talks. It's with different artists that have been working on a residency with us. And I'm Charlie. I'm a producer for Submerge. Submerge is a festival of innovative performance and music and creative technology in Manchester. And today we have Tammy Reynolds and Rosana Cade, and they're going to be discussing their project, which has the working title of Guess and Loser, We're Going Shopping. And I'm really excited to have you both here and discuss the project. So to quickly introduce everyone, we obviously have Tammy and Rosana. We have Mike, who has just introduced themselves, and Paul, who is interpreting the talk. So the talk's going to last for around 45 minutes, no longer than an hour. And if anyone needs captions, there's a button at the bottom of your screen called Live Transcript. If you just click that and then select subtitle, that should work fine. So a bit about Tammy worked with Submerge back in 2021 as part of a micro commission with us called Making Intimate Performance. And as a result of this, became an artist in residence with us. And has since then been working with Rosana to further explore and develop this piece. And I'm really excited to hear about the project. So with that, I'm going to hand over to both of them to have a little talk.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming.
Yes, thanks for coming. Hi, Tammy. How are you?
I'm very good. I have had a lovely day. I did a little thing in drag earlier, which is why I'm currently looking the way that I am. And I'm experimenting with green lips at the moment. What do you think, Rosana? I'm not sure.
I like them, and also someone could green screen something onto them if you were to be in a film.
That's what was happening today.
Woo.
Yeah. How are you doing?
I'm good. I recently arrived in London from Glasgow, and I'm surprised at how hot it is, because in Glasgow we still think it's winter. So
long country.
Yes, yeah. But no, I'm happy to be here. So we're going to start by introducing ourselves, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yes. So hi, everyone. Oh, Tammy, would you like to go first?
No.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Rosana Cade, and I am an artist. I live in Glasgow in Scotland. I identify as non-binary. And for me, that is about embracing fluidity and multiplicity and the potential for change. And that is something that goes beyond thinking about gender. That's something that I try to embody within my practice as well. And therefore, my work often takes quite different forms that emerge in relation to the context that I'm exploring. I'm really interested in queer pleasure and joy. And it has been a pleasure to work with Tammy. So Tammy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Fuck off. That was very, that was fucking good. That was well done. I'm impressed. That was just smooth.
Thank you.
So, can you ask me later to unsheath my luxury in a bit?
Yeah, let's do that after we've introduced ourselves.
Sorry, everyone, I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Tammy Reynolds. I am also perform as an alter ego of Majit Bardot. And I am genderless, I suppose. I perform mostly in club nights and drag nights and live art contexts as well. A lot of my work kind of crosses over between the two. And I sing and I dance and I talk about uncomfortable truths of things. And I also have dwarfism, and a lot of that informs the way that I approach art, the way that I approach congregation of people, of platforms, of the power dynamics that come with all of those things, and where I stand, whether I'm performing or whether I'm not. And I'm queer as shite. And I've loved working with Rosana Cade. That's part of my bio now.
Great, well done.
Yeah, was that all right?
That was good. That was good. And one thing that I'm learning from Tammy is how to be okay with not preparing exactly what you're going to say. And that was the first time I've had to introduce myself without being like, here's the thing that I've written. But actually it went all right. So
I think it went more than all right. I was wondering where it was going, if I'm perfectly honest, when you started talking about your gender. I was like, I talk about the gender a lot. And then it perfectly blent into your practice, which was great. You don't need to read off of things. You got this.
Thanks, Tammy. Okay, so should we talk about why we've got a luxury item with us?
Yes, we should.
What is that you've got?
Well, the reason why, when I first was working on this commission, I was spending a lot of time in supermarkets because it was lockdown. I was like the only place we could kind of leave the house. And I started trying to, I suppose, find small pleasures in it because it was so strange and weird. And also the nature of supermarkets has always been something that has affected me as someone with dwarfism, someone who's disabled, in terms of the accessibility of the place, in terms of what seems to be more accessible than other things for me. And so it makes me kind of wonder why it's placed there. But also it is something where I frequently find myself having to ask other people to get things that I want. And those things tend to be little like premium top shelf, larger tubs of Nutella, or God, like, I don't know, some bloody cayenne pepper. I don't know. I don't go to the supermarket very often, and I don't know what it looks like anymore. But this is my premium luxury item. And I'm gonna slowly, it's obviously wine. It's Prosecco specifically, because that was something that, sorry, can't oh. Yeah, and I think about how, and it basically inspired more and more of this project in thinking about how the relationship of inaccessibility to luxury items and the person who is not able to access them, and what that, like, how that manifests and how you can play with it, fuck with it. So we decided for this artist talk to get ourselves luxury items. I'm not very good at opening. Thank you.
Well done. Well done.
Wow, that went really well. Oh my God.
That was a good climax. It's something that I've thought about a lot since we were together, when I'm buying certain things in a shop, like what would it be if I had to ask someone to get me this object or this object? And yeah, I guess just the exposure of that, of your choices in that situation. For my luxury item, I also bought wine, but obviously that's what I did. Mine's a rosé. So cheers. Cheers, Tammy.
Roseana.
Exactly.
For you.
So yeah, so we've only spent 2 days together, haven't we? And when was that? March?
Sure.
Beginning of March?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to say March.
Yeah. And in those 2 days, we were kind of talking a lot about the project, and we went on an excursion to a big supermarket together.
Very big. One of the biggest ones I've been in for a while. I was quite impressed by how big it was.
Yes. And in a moment, I'm going to bring up some notes that we wrote, but I wish I hadn't told you this, Tammy, because it would have been a good surprise. But when we were in the supermarket, one of the things that Tammy picked up that they were maybe going to buy was a book called Sad Animal Facts, but you didn't buy it. And then recently I was in an Oxfam because I'm an incredibly ethical shopper, as you know.
I noticed that.
And there it was. So Sad Animal Facts, and on the front is a tortoise that says, "I tell myself my own bedtime stories." I'm not sure if that is a fact.
I think it must be. Who else is?
Yeah, I'd like to research what they actually mean by that.
I'd like to know how legally contracted they are, like legally obliged they are to. How do they decide? How can they put the word fact on the front?
And who decides what's sad?
I mean, some of them I was absolutely heartbroken.
Yeah. So if we get to a point in our talk where we've lost steam, we've lost inspiration, we will be drawing from this found object that we sourced on our adventure into the supermarket and then purchased in an ethical way.
Yeah.
Shall I open these notes, Tammy?
Yeah, sure. While you open the notes, I can say that the supermarket, what was really fun about working together in relation to entering a supermarket, actively going to a supermarket without the intention of necessarily buying anything. We were going to buy we bought lots of snacks and things like that, so that when we were working together, we could eat nice things because we wanted to treat ourselves after having been in the supermarket for quite a few hours, just actively looking at it and experiencing it, which is quite different to when you go in just for the convenience or essentials or your shop. And it really felt very it was just horrible, but it was kind of playful. It was fun as well. We noticed why things, we were like, why is that next to that, and what is that, and they're selling these now, and like there's a raspberry flavored Jaffa cake that's also white chocolate now, and just like random, I don't know if that's true, but just noticing quirks like that was actually really quite fun.
Yeah, I really agree. I think we did notice a lot of new flavors of things. But I think that's something that I really love about performance or art that happens in public spaces, particularly ones that are like governed by capitalism, because normally you're meant to be in them in such a particular way, and you're meant to be going from A to B and spending money. And it feels like quite a subversive act to be in there, really just taking up space and taking our time and just looking and feeling creative and making little stories about things.
We wanted to leave as well. We wanted to sit in a cafe and they wouldn't let us.
That's true, because they were closing.
Yeah.
But we sat there anyway without buying anything.
Yeah, we did. It's horrible. I didn't like it. The worst cafe.
So what we're going to do is I'm just going to start reading through these notes, and then when you feel like there's something you want to talk a bit more about, you're going to just jump in. And we'll see how we get on. I'll try and read quite slowly. So, supermarket notes from London residency. Notes around the idea, in capital letters. Want the project to be anti-supermarket. Don't want to give money to the supermarket or be promoting the supermarket. The idea emerged in a reactionary way from a place of trauma and anger. you were also responding to your experience of supermarkets during the pandemic and during lockdowns and how different these spaces were then. And actually, I wondered if you could speak a bit more about that, Tammy, if you want to.
About my trauma.
You can. No, I didn't actually mean that. I mean, because you were quite enjoying supermarkets during the lockdown, weren't you? Because everyone was having to act a bit differently.
Yeah, I enjoyed them in the ways where there was one-way systems, which create a lot more order to what I find quite a chaotic experience for my brain, because when I'm faced with a lot of choice, then I go into kind of a bit of paralysis of not being able to make any decision. And having a one-way system kind of forced you to order the way that you shop and maybe like if you forget, it feels a bit like I don't know, because it didn't have like the IKEA effect where when they make you go around the whole place, because you could pick and choose a bit, but everyone was being so much more, there was a lot more distance. It was harder to ask for things to be reached down for me, because everyone was kind of terrified of each other. But it also meant that when everyone was wearing face masks, including myself, there's a different energy that goes on where I don't get perceived as much in the way that I do usually as a dwarf. So that was quite nice. And yeah, I felt a lot safer in them, to be honest, because there was a lot more space and order, and it didn't feel like there was so much pressure to buy the next new thing either. People were kind of just forced, like more geared towards essentials or booze, a lot of booze. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I think, again, it's another one of those kind of times of realizing that things are able to change as well. Like we can change how we do things.
No, sorry, there's nipples on show. I forgot about them. Yeah. Yes, and like it felt a bit like, I mean, it was kind of scary because it felt like we were it was more evident that we are sheep in some way, or get treated like sheep. It's probably a better way to phrase it. And it was a bit spooky in that way, but I did feel like, and another thing that was great was that there were more staff on the floor. I can't believe I'm getting like nostalgic about fucking supermarket, a pandemic. What the fuck? My life, everyone's lives. But what was I saying?
More staff.
More staff. Yeah, so I could just ask them to do it all the time and help me get stuff. And sometimes they'd like be quite happy to have an interaction that was a bit more personal and not like, where's all the toilet paper? I'd be like, excuse me, can you get me this jar of pesto? And they'd just be happy to help me and have a little nice chat.
Mm-hmm.
That is the thing that, I like about my experience of supermarkets. Can I jump ahead to that? I know.
Yes, I was going to say we've got that point coming up. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, one of the things, I guess a lot of my work, what I like to do is it starts from a place of overwhelm and anger sometimes, rage sometimes, or discomfort a lot of the time as well. And then it starts and then I have to think about what I'm going to do with that and where I want to go with it, if I do want to go anywhere with it. And there's something about the supermarket and working on this together and just considering it more, even before we worked together, when me and Mike were chatting about things, I was just considering how it feels quite nice to try and shift something that feels a bit like a power dynamic of, I need help, I need someone to help me, where it's not always the case, because I frequently climb the supermarket shelves, and that's another thing, is that they've changed the way that they fucking refrigerate things now, so I can't put my foot on a lot of things in the way that I used to. And that was something I enjoyed, walking around with you, showing you my tricks of how I get things. That just felt like a show in itself, to be honest. But then it means that I can have these like quite nice, funny interactions with people, and then someone gets the benefit of feeling like they've helped me, which sometimes is a bit gross, but at this time it feels quite nice to give someone that feeling. But and to demonstrate like gratitude and being like, thank you, oh that's sweet, God, yeah, I don't like that chocolate either, but this one's really good, and they'll like recommend me some biscuit or something maybe. I can't get out of that confectionery aisle, but that is where I spend most of my time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's like a nice subversion of something that I used to, especially when I was younger, perceive as quite a negative, exhausting experience. And actually it can be really fun and nice and friendly.
Yeah, what we've got written in these notes is being disabled gives personality to the supermarket. And you know, yeah, you recognize that you have interactions and you have to have interactions with people, and these can be both negative and positive, but perhaps you are interested in trying to uncover both sides of this within this process.
And it just kind of, yeah, it creates characters, I suppose, within the space that normally we would completely all be avoiding each other, regardless of pandemics. And also when I go to the same supermarket again and again, it's got one at the end of my road, which is fucking awful. Oh, Sainsbury's local was terrible. However, this is nice. That's the problem. They just get you every time. But then I start like, I've got a friendly relationship with the security guard there, and it does make stealing harder. But it's really nice that he checks up on me and sees if I need anything to reach in for. And I think one day he'll probably, if he sees me stealing anything, he'll just be like, go on, I'll let you off, because I get away with murder. But yeah, it does add a kind of element of personality, which is something that's always welcome, I think, in like, especially capitalist spaces, but like any space that is quite exclusionary and like intersectionally exclusionary. And then it's like, well, at least there's a bit of pizzazz here in some way, heart, perhaps. There are people behind these, within the same terrible kind of trap of capitalism. And it's nice to have chats with them instead. Yeah. What else you got in the notes? Come on.
Okay. Yeah, let's keep going. So, spoken about this a bit already.
Well, hang on. Also, Rosana, do you have like, you chime in too with your own stuff? I'm down.
Oh yes, yeah. Yeah, I will. I will. I'll keep going with the notes.
Yeah.
You've been one. So yeah. We actually only read like 3 so far. So there's, but we're jumping around, and that's good. You've been wondering if there's a way to make it where you don't have to be there, because you've been thinking about energy levels and how to avoid burnout. So this is something that we were speaking about a lot, isn't it? Like, it feels like there's quite a clear, well, there's stuff that you're interested in exploring with this work and exploring with an audience, but what the actual form of it could be feels like a question that has perhaps multiple answers at this stage, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I guess something that I'm very grateful for, and something I think I sometimes undersell, is that I can I write, like any performance that I do is a written thing first, and I feel, and I also want to collaborate more. Like, that's something that I think can help avoid burnout at times. Obviously, collaboration is not something that means less work. It's a different kind. But it does feel like there's something where that element of burnout, where I worry about putting myself into a space that is a supermarket, it's not hostile, friendly, calming place. Like if I needed a breakout space for myself, maybe it'd be like in the car park or something. Like it wouldn't be ideal. And it's also within the general public where I experience harassment and discrimination anyway. So it was really nice to be able to start realizing that I don't have to put myself in those spaces in order to say or in order to show or give an experience of some kind, because I can write, and we talked about, I don't know if it's in the notes, and I don't know if we're going to talk about it, but I don't really care. I mean, I don't really mind. I'd like to talk about it because it's fun.
Yeah.
And there are 4 people here, 5 people, but like, who cares if the press find out? But like this idea, you said it about AR, was it? Augmented reality, and joking around with like looking at some of the products and being like, imagine if they were like, I'm trying to think of a thing, like instead of Imperial mints, because Imperial could also just fuck off, but maybe just like Majit's mints or Majit gems is something I'm very passionate about. And like changing some of the branding through technology, or even just actually having physical props that we just plant there and see who picks up. And like the green giant sweet corn was one. There's loads of things. I don't know if you've got the list of the things.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the others were, but just yeah. I'd like to do some chewing gum, because any like chewing gum that like just clamps your teeth shut or something.
Yeah. So we were thinking about
chewing gum.
One version of the work that maybe you've been thinking about before is that it's an actual one-on-one encounter, an experience where you are there, but sort of thinking about the practicalities of that around, as you say, energy levels, burnout. Do you want to be putting yourself into a space that isn't comfortable? And that there's actually potentially many other ways to share with an audience some of this stuff, these experiences. So we were imagining, like you could have an audio tour of a supermarket that you design that is perhaps generic, but you can you could visit a city and like have a specific order that things happen in according to the layout of that supermarket, because they've all got the same sections, haven't they? But also, could it be something that's like has AR within it, so that perhaps you go around an aisle and suddenly you see Tammy coming down it as the green giant, which was an image that has stayed in my head.
Same, me too. Oh, good.
And then within that, there was, so I'm just going back into the notes now, some other ideas. Are there some actions you could have audience members, like they have to go down on their knees and go down an aisle on their knees to experience your eye level? Do they need to ask someone for help to buy something?
Yeah, I like the idea of someone, I mean, anyone can I might experiment with it myself, like asking for someone to reach something that I can very much clearly reach. Even like not, because I assume maybe if you ask someone to reach something up high, they might actually be like, oh, you can't raise your arm or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like the idea of something just being there. Could you get that for me? And just experimenting with that, I think, would be quite fun. And I think, I like the idea of people playing in supermarkets. And I also think it might, if it doesn't encourage other people to find out what's going on, ask why, it at least brightens their experience of being in a supermarket. And I frequently consider how my presence can impact someone's day, because I have quite an anecdotal existence, something I think about a lot, of like being, I went to the supermarket and there was a dwarf there or something. And I don't know fully if that always happens, but I also know that I'm curious. And when I notice something different, I like to talk about it or think about it. And so it's fun to think about tasks that can have a little ripple effect and disturb the normality and coldness of a supermarket. And I think I in the same way as you, or any artist, I only really want to make art that I want to go to or see. And I think if I was invited to I don't know, something, and they was like, okay, we're going to give you this headset and you're going to either, I mean, it could be really hard to like listen to someone telling you what to do in a supermarket.
Oh, you mean hot like sexy?
Mm.
I thought you meant they might be a bit hot with a headset on, because I was just thinking I'm quite hot with this on right now.
Okay, I get that you just got to acclimatise to London, Rosana. You just got to get over it. I'm sorry. I know what you mean, because I lived in Liverpool, and when I moved down, I was like, this is mad.
It's a different climate. But no, sorry, we've digressed. Hot, it could be sexy, and I think we mentioned there perhaps being some quite seductive moments within it, because all the products are trying to seduce you as you go round. And didn't we spend quite a long time looking at the spinning chickens and imagining some lovely music playing as you sort of stand and look at them? So it was almost becoming something that felt quite trippy and surreal as an experience. But I think, I do believe myself that there is potential within creating like embodied live experiences for people that really can help them see things in a different way and have some sense of how someone else might encounter a space that is different to them without ever really knowing what it's like to be someone else. And that is different to if you were to make a show about this and people were to sit in an audience and hear you. But we did talk about, that there could potentially be different strands of this. There could be something that is very experiential, but also you are a really amazing performer. You really like performing on stage. We were talking about that a lot. I recently got to see you in Cambridge performing, and I was like, this is where Tammy belongs. But, it's so strong as well. And that if that is, I guess when we were talking about what form it takes, we were also trying to think, what is the space that you want to be in and the space you want to be creating for yourself as you go along this process, which is dealing with something that is actually quite difficult. And also with that, we were talking about whether it has an activism element as well, which feels like, just making the artwork and having people think about that is important. But another thing that could happen, in the notes, I think we came up with some ideas of what would happen if you went to your local supermarket that you go to all the time and you asked them to put the products that you buy regularly on a lower shelf. And, is that something that could build as part of the process, helping other people to do that in spaces that they need to have things moved? Like, we don't even know what would happen if you were to do that. And is that something you want to take on, or do you just want to make some art?
I want to take that on, but I want someone else to do it, because I don't think I'm actually the person to do it, even if I can have the ideas and things. There's like loads of care, loads of organisation, loads of stuff like that is just not currently within my remit, but it's something that I would like to happen. Another thing that we spoke about, and it's in relation to, there's a fly in here.
There's a cat in here.
Oh God, hang on, there's a cat wanting to come in, just a moment. I'll be a hot second.
The cat has just curled up in my notebook, so this will be the rest of the talk.
I am concerned that I'm so jealous of your sofa. God. Oh, what's the cat's name?
This is Olive, and she's quite young actually. She's my friend's cat, and she's one of the most friendly cats I've ever met. She's incredibly cuddly.
Yeah, she's more friendly than my cat, isn't she?
More than mine. Than
mine. She might be joining us soon. I don't know. She might sometimes tries to get on here, and it's not safe. But the thing that we were talking about is this element where to try and consider how we could keep me performing in some way, because that's the thing I love and was made to do, born to be, all of that. And so the idea, which was like a larger, there's that thing, isn't it, where you like think of your dream scenario and then you like scale it down. But this idea of building my own supermarket or like building a set or kind of space of like, it would be really much lower, it would be wider, it would be, maybe it would just be a conveyor belt of things going around that I could just pick up and not move.
Like a sushi train.
I don't like sushi, but my God, do I want to go to a sushi restaurant for that exact that. I think I'm gonna have to just eat sushi and get over it, because I need to experience that absolute efficiency. I'm obsessed with it.
But it's a trick, because you end up spending way more than you anticipated, because it's just like, it's not a number, it's a color. Yeah, it's very clever. Yeah,
very clever. But yeah, something like that would be really fun to experiment with, and the element of activism that could go into that is like, I don't know, maybe even like working with fucking kids and being like, what would your dream shop look like?
But this is, sorry to interrupt. No, this is why it's so interesting that we got brought together on this project, because this is, and I spoke about this a little bit, but this is exactly a project that me and Ivan McCaskill, who's in the audience tonight.
Oh yeah. Hi Ivan. Hi, how you doing? I hope you're good. Okay, we'll chat afterwards. It's really, thank you so much for coming.
Number one fan. We have been thinking about it more in relation to closed shops, but of course it applies to many shopping spaces, but we've been thinking about closed shops because we're thinking about trying to create a more accessible shopping space for trans and non-binary people, but absolutely wanting to think about accessibility in lots of different ways. So, you know, maybe this was meant to be, and we're going to have a whole new chain that's going to have closed shops, supermarkets, and they're all just going to be conveyor belts. No, I that would actually not be a good design for me, I'm going to be honest. But
okay. It's not for everyone.
No, we'll have to we can have different departments. It could be a department store.
I don't want a conveyor belt. I've changed my mind. I think I would get confused. I'd forget everything that's just passed me by, so I'd end up just picking it all up and not knowing what to do. So I don't want a conveyor belt. Maybe a conveyor belt for me to just stand on, I guess. That would just be fun. I always envy people who get to stand on moving things. Always impressive to me. I can't skateboard for dear life, but if I could have some kind of nice, yeah, you know what, maybe I shouldn't be on that conveyor belt. But yes, it was interesting how it was combined and how I mean, I don't know if it was you who even brought up the idea, but you definitely kind of suggested this element of, well, let's take you out of the supermarket, and how do we keep it within, like, keep it in that theme or in that activism element as well. And we were, like, encouraging people to go to their local supermarket to get things lowered down or get things placed in better positions for them. And then it's trying to, like, it's like identifying a clear problem that is affecting a lot of people intersectionally, and the same with your clothes shop. And then it's also just providing an actual solution for it, instead of just inviting people to talk about it and then be like, cool, thank you for sharing your story, because that does fuck all and it normally traumatizes people. So it's really cool to think of this idea of something kind of, and I'd want everything to be free. Like everything would be free. I don't know how we can budget for it. I don't really care. It's not my job. But I would want everything to be free, or even people to be paid to do it. Or something, I don't know. But or maybe just no money exchange, no money at all. And I know that your shop can't be free because it's a different kind of thing. But I mind that doesn't exist at all, which is actually quite nice and freeing. It feels a bit more like an easier, when I first started making art, I was so angry at discrimination and disability discrimination and accessibility and certain systems and institutions that are so oppressive. And I would just shout and rage about it and not be able to think of a solution other than raising awareness in my own way, which mostly just inspired a lot of pity, perhaps at times, or guilt from their perspective of like, oh, I'm a bad non-disabled person, or I'm a bad straight person, which all straight people are bad straight people, but that's just my opinion, and it's correct. And that doesn't mean all queer people are good people either. But I like this direction that I'm able to start thinking in, of like offering, instead of these systems need to change and crumble, it's like, while these systems are still standing, which they are, and it fucking sucks, and for some people who are disabled, let's say, it's really beneficial and good, let's figure out how we can cope and manage and navigate through these spaces while they're here. And that feels so much easier and more fun and creative, and makes my brain work a bit harder to think in that way. And in the same way with your shop, it's not like we need to transform everything, like it's not like a nationwide gender health clinic needs to be funding and conversion therapy needs to be banned, and not like thinking of this big picture thing that affects everyone within the gender spectrum, or whatever you want to call it. It's nice not thinking that way, because that just is totally overwhelming and it doesn't really feel very creative. And I feel like working with you definitely helped that for me, because you were good at bringing it back to the space and the situation and the location and the intimacy of one-on-one performances. And like you talked about your practice with different, like with your lap dancing. I don't know what it was called. What was the piece called?
My big sister taught me this lap dance.
And hearing about that kind of made me think that it's something that can be gentler and more short-term but immediate. Is quite a nice feeling, to be honest. That feels like a nicer form of activism that I can like digest and take in and not feel a huge sense of responsibility. But also, I don't really call myself an activist, because as a performer, I think it can put yourself in a bit of murky waters. But it's always really nice to be able to make work where it has a knock-on effect on a community that is being fucked over.
Yeah, I think we spoke about that a bit, didn't we? Sort of the relationship between art and activism, and that actually sometimes you feel a responsibility to be doing so much more than you are. But actually, one thing that I really believe is, of course, when change happens, it happens slowly, and it happens because of many, 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 many different things. It's not just one person that changes the world. That's actually a line from the show that we're doing at the moment. Every now and again I start saying something, I'm like, I'm just doing lines from the show. And also, like, art can exist within its, I believe personally that art can exist in the world, and it doesn't have to be doing that thing that is making a change. But of course, when there's things that you believe in and that you feel passionate about, you want to feel like there's some effect happening. But it doesn't have to be you that's doing all the activism side along with it, and creating something that people can come and encounter just as an artwork can still have like very profound and meaningful impacts on people that can lead other people to go on and do different things as well. And it's about capacity and managing, you know, what is the thing that's most important to you about this project that you feel really passionate about and that brings you joy and that you feel able to invest in, and making that something that's manageable, I think, in terms of the process and of the form of it. And then seeing, you know, it might be that as it builds, there's other things that you want to add on to it that are more about contacting local disability charities in the place that you are, and, you know, beginning a conversation between them and that supermarket, or I don't know, like, but that doesn't have to be part of it, I suppose.
Well, so I want to say this because I'm aware that we're slowly coming to the end anyway, and it leads on really nicely to what I think we'll probably start on, but I don't know. We'll find out. This element of activism and art and that kind of thing, which we did speak about, I resent the fact that I don't believe a lot of people who make art and don't experience a lot, like, let's say, straight people, straight white cis man, it probably doesn't cross their mind a huge amount about activism within their art. And I find it quite, like, it really annoys me that it feels like there's a kind of responsibility because of my awareness. Like, I have an awareness because of my lived experience that's deeper and valuable, but I believe myself to be a problematic, inaccessible, disabled person. Like, I've started just kind of recognizing that, and I really enjoy it, and it's really fun. It's also a bit like guilt-inducing, but it feels like it's also me looking after myself as a disabled person within a process to then be able to, like, after years down the line, decades, I'm hoping, I can sit and be, like, quite self-assured and comfortable in my practice at that point, to also be surrounded by people who I can, like, be like, I really want to do fucking this. I want to help and do a bit of outreach, part of the protest, I suppose, that slowly makes impacts, change, etc. I am the next, who did
You've frozen a bit, Tammy.
No.
No, you're sort of a slow motion robot coming through.
Technologic. Does that do anything?
Oh yeah, actually that brought you back, I
think. That's creepy. Oh, that's a shame. I was saying something really powerful and meaningful or whatever. Maybe I wasn't, actually. Who knows? What was I saying? Where did you
something?
Well, just respond if you want.
I guess I am. I just want to say that I am wary of. I don't myself believe that people that are cis white straight men are not activists as well. And I know you won't say that in such a blanket way, but what I do understand that you're saying is when you have a lived experience of oppression or marginalization or whatever word we want to use for that thing, sometimes it's like there's no choice. You have to work with that, and perhaps that isn't always the case if you don't have those experiences. But I think there's huge capacity within everyone to be activists for all kinds of different causes, and that people do. But I really know what you mean as well, because I'm not. I also know that there are trends there. I just get wary of, like.
Okay, so I don't believe that. I believe that they're okay. Yes, I completely agree with you, and I guess maybe didn't phrase it right. It's more like a lot of the work that I make is received sometimes and perceived and like commission. I could apply for a lot of commissions that are like disability arts things, and part of that means I have to do some kind of engagement activism talk, for example. And I also feel a bigger, I think there's I feel a larger sense of responsibility or expectation to be activist. I don't feel like, I think I'm being perceived as an activist when I'm not presenting one.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying.
I'm not saying that I'm not an activist, because I think a lot of my work has a knock-on effect and is a form of protest, blah, 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 blah. And I do my own little shit on the side, whatever. But it's something where I think it sucks the joy. It can suck the joy out of it a bit sometimes for me, because it feels a bit like there's a duty and an obligation to make sure that this is going to encourage some kind of change and movement. And I just want people, I like groundwork more of like that. Yeah, being able to encourage people to think differently feels like the activism element's going on there. I don't know. Oh, I think we're going to be prompted, but I want to say one more thing. And then would you like to say one more thing or something, and then we can wrap up? But like the thing that I want to say is kind of in relation to being a marginalized artist with a lived experience of this shit, and then also making work about it, is the thing that we talked about a lot, of being like trying to get me out of the space. And I like this idea of working, like a lot of my practice over the past 2 years now has been so focused on resting and working and acknowledging my political and like body within spaces that I enter, and looking after that first in order for me to then like do whatever. And this working with you and talking about having someone else present for this creative process and collaboration, because it feels like a collaboration in some ways, for sure. You've really helped me like entertain my mind and ideas in that way. It's definitely made me kind of realize the ways that I don't have to be pushing myself any further than I have to be able to talk about things that maybe push me. And I just want to thank you for that, because it's taught me a lot. It makes me feel very like, I don't know, 20 years down the line, I'll still be able to sit and not move and be as disabled as I am and be like, oh, but I can like, I don't know, crawl across all of the supermarket shelves dressed up as a green giant. And like that can just happen and be really subversive and cool, and people would fuck with that. I'd fuck with that. Yeah, God, I banged on a bit there, didn't I? But I don't care, it's my talk. And yours.
Well, it's very much you're talking your project, Tammy, so I'm not going to have the last word other than to say thank you for inviting me to be involved, and it would be lovely to carry on working with you in some way. So let's see.
Yeah, bang on, Rosana, fucking A, yeah.
Thank you to both of you for that exciting conversation. It's really interesting to hear about the residency and how things might have developed. And I really love that you found that common ground over the kind of thinking about shops, which was quite coincidental, I think. Yeah, thank you for thank you for working with Submerge since 2001. It's been really fun, and hopefully we get to carry on. And yeah, thanks to Charlie for hosting. Thanks to Paul for the BSL. And thanks to Rosana and Tammy. I feel like we should clap now, but yeah, that's weird. Goodbye. Thank you everybody for coming, and yeah, see you soon.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, sweet.